This is my new to me 1993 Mazda FD RX7. And this is actually a very special car for me because it's my attainable dream car. And I can't believe that I've finally attained it. If you're an OG follower of our channel, you might remember back in 2017, I sold my very beloved Spec B to buy an FD RX7. And I actually looked and test drove a couple of them, which you didn't really see on camera, because I got distracted with more shiny Subarus. The legacy wagon that I had was too good of a deal to pass up, and well, it turned out that it was too good of a deal to be true because I had title issues with that. It was a nightmare. We sold that and got more distracted with my Subaru Forester, which was an awesome car, fully built, you know, STI swap everything, and it was amazing. And it did everything that I needed at the time. But now I have a truck, which is more practical than my Forester. I have a Civic that's faster on track than my Forester, and I have a Ford Escort that collects dust better than anything I know. So I really didn't have much of a need for the Forester anymore, which is why I've sold it to refocus my efforts back on getting my attainable dream car. And it's finally happened. Okay, so before I tell you more about the car, I think we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the motor. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ben, you've actually done it. You've got yourself a reliable RX-7.
But it doesn't run.
It doesn't currently run, but we'll get to that. This is a 2005 Acura RSX Type S motor, the K20Z1. It holds a ton of boost. It can make like 500, 600 wheel horsepower on the stock block. And yes, there is a turbo strap to this. It is the SXE 257 turbo. So those of you that have been asking me to turbo the Civic, I've got a turbo K already. I don't need to do the Civic. The previous owner of this car was expecting about 600 wheel horsepower, which I think is a bit overambitious. I think this will probably end up being about 450. But we'll get back to that. We'll talk a little bit more later in this video about why I specifically wanted this motor in an FD RX7. The factory engines for these cars are actually quite heavy because they're cast iron. The 13B weighs 410 pounds, which is why the LS swap guys can get away with putting a big heavy V8 in these cars because they're actually about the same weight. But if you put an aluminum block 4-cylinder motor in, they're significantly lighter. In fact, I put this car on the scales and it weighs 2,300 pounds without any fluids in it. But that's insane. And it's actually on factory suspension, which is obviously why we have 4 inches of wheel gap. So I'm gonna have to put coilovers on this car for sure because the car is so much lighter than it was from the factory. It looks like a monster truck. By now, you've probably noticed the condition of the paint, and that is to say, not very good. It's the original paint from the original owner. This car has 54,000 original miles on it. The paint is called Montego Blue. It's got this nice color shift between blue and green. It's a really nice color, but the clear coat is definitely faded and this car will need to be repainted. But that's not a big deal because the chassis of this car is actually really straight. There's no major dents and dings and nothing that can't be removed with some PDR. And my favorite thing is that there's no sunroof, which means there's no extra weight over my head, there's no potential leaking in the rain, there's more room in the cabin, and you get a clear view of the nice double bubble on the top of the RX-7. Not only that, but we also have no spoiler on the trunk, which means we have an empty canvas to work with if I want to put an aftermarket spoiler on here, or if I want to leave this clean trunk. All right, well, let's talk about the drawbacks of this car. The interior, it's not great. It's tan, and well, tan interior doesn't look very good, so I obviously want to change this out with black interior. The tan interiors are cheaper, so I saved some money here. But I'm gonna have to change out a lot of these interior pieces for black because I want it to be black interior because black interior looks better. But the FD tax is insane. The cost of some of these interior prices are just, they blow my mind. This door panel right here, $600 for a black used door panel. The carpet, $850 for a used OEM carpet. Some of these plastic panels behind my head are like 300 bucks. It's insane. And it's insane that I'm gonna actually buy some of that stuff later. But for now, I have saved some money. I'm gonna live with the tan interior for now. And you know, you can change interior, but you can't change the chassis. And this chassis is solid. All right, now let's talk about the motor. 13B engines are fantastic. I love rotary engines. They're wonderful, and if you've ever driven one, you know what I mean. They feel amazing. They've got a great power band, they rev out really nicely, they sound so awesome. but they're very different than a piston engine. They require different maintenance. It's not that they're unreliable, because they're not unreliable. They just require different maintenance than most people are used to. For example, if you start up a rotary engine, you're supposed to leave it running to warm up before you turn it off. And you're supposed to redline it every time you drive it to clear out carbon deposits. You're supposed to pre-mix the gas with some oil. They naturally burn oil. All of this is not necessarily bad, it's just different. And they require a different way of maintaining and owning a car. And I didn't really want to deal with that. And the only other option that I had really seen was people doing LS swaps. And an LS swap is a very crude motor. It's got a lot of vibration, it's very raw. And that wasn't really what I was looking for either, because from a driving perspective, I much prefer driving a 13B. I've driven both a 13B RX7 and an LS RX7. I've never driven a K-swap RX7, so this will be an interesting experience. But I think the LS swap is a very crude swap, and I think if you want to do that, you can get a Corvette. It's a very popular swap for good reason, because it makes more power, almost double the fuel economy of a 13B, which not a lot of people talk about, the poor fuel economy. It's obviously way less maintenance, but it's a very tight engine bay, and I didn't really want to deal with that either. So I think the K-swap in an FD is like the perfect solution. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with a rotary engine, because I think rotary engines are awesome. I just didn't want to deal with all of the different ownership requirements with a rotary. I want to drive this car every day. I want to drive this car on the street. I want to enjoy this car. I don't want to have to worry about anything. I'm going to have to do certain things to maintain this engine, just like you would with any other car. It's not free of any maintenance. I still have to do oil changes, but it's going to be a lot less maintenance than a 13B. I don't have to deal with overheating or crazy vacuum lines or anything like that. It's all quite simple. So that's why I've decided to go with the K-Series. It makes more power than a rotary, easier and cheaper, and the maintenance is cheaper. I don't have to deal with doing this crazy maintenance and making sure the carbon deposits aren't being built up in the engine and stuff like that. And honestly, it's something I'm familiar with. I'm not very familiar with rotaries, and that scares me because I don't really know how to properly maintain one. I would become that statistic with an unreliable rotary that blows its apex seals. And I didn't want to be that statistic. I want an FD RX7 because I think they're the most gorgeous car in existence, and I wanted to be able to drive it every day. And I think this is the best way for me to be able to do that. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but this is definitely for me. All right, enough of talking about K-Series swaps and LS swaps and all that. You probably want to hear this thing run, but I can't start the car because it doesn't run. So it's definitely a project. We will have a build series on this channel for this car very soon. I'm going to get working on it as soon as possible. Probably going to take it up to the same guy that did the Civic swap up in Wisconsin, because he is a K-swap genius. So he'll get most of the stuff taken care of way better than I will. But yeah, let me just walk around the car and kind of show you some of the stuff that I'm going to be doing to this car. It's not going to stay stock appearance, that's for sure, but we're going to start in the engine bay here. It needs a fueling system. It has no injectors, no fuel rail, no fuel line or anything like that. So I'm going to put a fuel rail in it. Probably going to run ethanol, E85 on a flex fuel sensor because it's a turbo car, why not? I do want to put power steering and air conditioning in it, which is going to be very complicated. It has never been done before in a K-swap on an FD, which hasn't been done that often in general. I don't know why it hasn't. But there's that. So that's most of the engine bay work. All the hard parts have already been done. It already has an engine cradle that's been designed for the K-swap, where it actually uses S2000 engine mounts. And it uses an S2000 transmission with the K-Miata S2000 adapter. A lot of this stuff is actually from K-swap Miata stuff because it's a rear-wheel drive configuration K-swap. So there's actually a plethora of parts out there for it. Exhaust has already been routed. It's a full 4-inch exhaust all the way back. We have an intercooler, we have a radiator, we have coolant lines. A lot of this stuff has already been done. It just needs to be actually wrapped up and finished, which is what I hope I'll be able to do. As far as the bodywork is concerned, we have this old school front bumper on, and it's not great. So this is a US spec bumper from like 93 to 95. I think it's the only years that the US got the FD. The 99 spec bumper, which is like a Japanese only thing, is a much better looking bumper, and they're also $1,500 with the lip. So I didn't buy that. I bought a different style bumper. It's very similar to the 99 spec style, but it's actually a little bit more aggressive looking. So I'm going with that. It's on its way. I've got some wide front fenders that I'm going to be putting on it. Obviously, we've already talked about this. I'm going to put some coilovers on it, lower the car. Probably going to put some wheels on it. That might be down the road. I kind of like the way the stock wheels look, but we will put wheels on it eventually. As for the body, This windshield is not actually mounted on the car. You might have noticed some of this tape because the windshield had to come out to notch the engine bay to clear the engine. I don't know if we showed you that either, but the engine actually sits kind of in the firewall by about an inch or two. So the whole firewall had to be notched back a little bit. The heat from that would have cracked the windshield, so they took the windshield out. So this is a new windshield. It just needs to be glued in place. They left it out because it's easier to work on the interior and stuff, which is important because there is no wiring harness underneath the dash. So the dash will have to come out. The seats are not bolted in, either seat. Actually, most of the interior is not bolted in at all, which is not a big deal because it all has to come out for the wiring stuff anyway. So all of that's gonna get plumbed in and fitted in. Spoiler, I think I'm gonna go spoilerless for the time being. You let me know what you think in the comments below. The 99 Specs Spirit R spoiler looks awesome. I just don't know if I'm ready to commit to that kind of like aggressive look yet. I don't know, I haven't decided, but I've got a couple other like bodywork stuff that I'm planning on doing to it. Let me pop the trunk and show you some stuff that I've got in here. Trunks on FDs are very difficult to open. You have to actually close the door. You see how the trunk lifted up? Because there's no way to grab the trunk if the air pocket from the door doesn't open it. So check this out. So if I leave this closed, when you close the door, that air pocket kind of lifts the trunk up so you can actually grab underneath it. Trunk struts work, which is awesome. And all the interior in the trunk area is black, which is good. So that's already been replaced. This is the body harness. We're gonna have real fun with this, putting that in place. And we do have some interior plastic stuff, and we have the original manual, 93 RX7 owner's manual, which is really cool. You can learn all about the 13B engine that this car doesn't have. It's really neat. What else do we have? There's a clear view of some tan interior in here, which is not great looking. I really want to change out that tan interior, but no spare tire or anything. There's not a lot of room in this trunk. It's kind of hard to describe to you guys, but it's like 8 inches of depth maybe. So like, it's enough room for groceries. This is my first sports car, so I'm not used to having like no space. I'm used to Foresters where I can fit everything in the back. Also, this thing takes some effort. The fender up here on the front is red. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but it's red because the fender that was on the car was kind of beat up. So previous owner replaced this fender with the other fender he got on eBay, but the fender that he got ended up also being beat up. So that's why I'm gonna be changing out both of the fenders. And then I'm gonna paint the car. Haven't decided on a color yet. You guys let me know what color you think I should paint this. I might wrap it for the time being, just because it's a lot of work to take everything out and paint the engine bay and stuff. And if I'm not settled on the color yet, I don't know if I really want to commit to painting the whole car and engine bay and door jambs and stuff if I'm not sure what color to run yet. But yeah, that's everything on this car. There's gonna be like a couple episodes of build series stuff. I am so excited to get started on this, and I'm really excited for you guys to see it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of nervous to see what your guys' view of this engine swap is. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you wonder why there's not more K-swapped FDs out there? Because I wonder why there's not more K-swapped FDs out there. Why are people messing around with LS swaps when you could be K-swapping FDs? I don't get it. Yeah, let me know. Do you like the 13B motor? Should I have left the 13B motor? Do you hate me because I now have an FD that's not true to form? Let me know. Either way, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. In the next couple weeks, the next couple months, we'll be releasing build series stuff on this. So get ready to see this car transform.